the moment that you're going to be in can maybe compensate for any fatigue that you might have this deep into the playoffs? Just the excitement.
No, there's no fatigue.
So just hold at the end of the clip so I can play the soundbite.
2 days in between games, so there's no real fatigue there. And yeah, it's exciting to be back in Edmonton. Excited to play in front of our fans, play in this building, and
I just don't want to go. I want to go home.
Well, Connor McDavid, and then you heard that at the very end. Our next guest, Steve Peters, the former assistant coach of the Arizona Coyotes, just did not want to go back up to Edmonton. He was pleading to go back home. I think he might have jinxed himself. So we got Steve Peters up in Edmonton joining us now on the right Toyota guest line. Steve, it's Manuch alongside with Jax and Shu. Man, you're logging a lot of miles. What have you logged, about 95,000 miles so far right now?
Yeah, I tell you what, I think we're hitting the 10,000 mile mark right now over the last 14 days. I'm tired. So he says there's no fatigue. Is he out of his mind? I'm not playing, and I'm exhausted, like uncle. Like, hey, I'm tired.
And before we get into the whole land auction thing, what have you, I just want to get your thoughts on the last game as far as we talked about this, the athleticism, the skating. I mean, they scored 3 straight goals. What was that, like 8-9 goals in a row from the 8-1 shellacking they had the game before?
Yeah, you know what's different right now? And then in game 5, it was all about the special teams. They won differently. They couldn't get through the neutral zone. They couldn't get that speed game going. Edmonton is surprising me at every turn at how they're winning in different ways. And they're back in their home building now. So I hate to say it. Are we going 7 games?
Well, you know what? I would love to see it. But to that vein, in reference to the, moving on from that particular standpoint, Connor McDavid, we hit this yesterday about the records he's already set throughout the playoffs and the potential records he's going to break throughout the playoffs. Now, one of those is by Wayne Gretzky. How apropos would that be, him breaking a record with the team that Gretzky came from? But I guess we read there's 4 or 5 where he's leading all time, and there may be 2 more he may break if it goes 7 games, Steve?
Yeah, the biggest one he's trying to chase down right now is the most points in one.
Hey, Manuch, I've got something.
Season right now, and he's 5 short right now with 2 games to go. He has 4 points in each of his last 2 games. So 5 points over 2 is definitely not unattainable by Connor McDavid. And this would be an unbelievably great feat, especially in this era. Like, you look at when Wayne Gretzky played back in the 80s, you're talking about the goal differential was much higher, and the goaltenders aren't what they are today. So for Connor McDavid to be even mentioned in that breath right now is absolutely amazing.
Steve, I have a very interesting question for you, because I think when the series is 3-0, there is pressure to not get swept if you're Edmonton. And then at 3-1, there is pressure to just potentially extend the series. Now where we sit going into this game tonight, is there more pressure on Florida or is there more pressure on Edmonton?
I think the pressure has shifted back and forth throughout the series. I do think that game 4 with Florida having the opportunity to sweep, I think Edmonton just came out and played. They're like, hey, we got nothing to lose here. Let's just go play and have fun at home. You go back to Florida, the pressure's all on Florida. You're at home. You have to win at home. You don't want to go back to Edmonton. I think that's shifted now. I think the weight is squarely on the Edmonton Oilers now. Back at home, the expectations are in this city and this country, for that matter, is they expect the Edmonton Oilers to win. I think there's a lot of pressure tonight on the Edmonton Oilers to perform at home. And I'm curious to see how their goaltender, Stuart Skinner, responds to that kind of pressure. He struggled early in the playoffs. He's been great over the last 3 games. We'll see how he does on the biggest stage at home tonight.
Steve Peters, PHNX Hockey, joins us here on the right Toyota guest line, Fox Sports 910. Steve, what's been the biggest difference, I guess, what's changed with Florida these past 2 games versus the previous 3? And I guess if you were the head coach for Florida and you were in that locker, what would you say to kind of flip the tide as it's starting to become panic mode for the Florida Panthers?
I think in game 4, they just were off their game. I don't think they played well in game 4. Game 5, you saw a lot of the things that Florida did well, they did again. They were tough on the forecheck. They controlled the play during the neutral zone. They were good. The biggest difference between games 1, 2, 3 and game 4 and 5 was Bob Roski. And Bob Roski, who was talked about as the MVP of the playoffs in games 1 through 3, has kind of fallen off the map in games 4 and 5. He struggled in those games. He's given up more goals in 2 consecutive games than he has the entire season this year. He has to be better. if he isn't better tonight, not only will they not win tonight, but they're in danger of losing that 3-0 lead. So I think Bobrovsky is the key player to look for to see if he looks sharp through this first period.
Set the scene there at the Rogers Arena. I'm sure you're there front and center. You're right there in the ESPN truck. What's going on? Is everybody and their mother pretty much? Is the entire town of Edmonton out there in front getting ready to go in the arena?
It's absolutely insane. The feeling in this city compared to what we saw in Sunrise, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, it's not even close. Like this Edmonton town, it's a small big town, and you cannot go anywhere in this town without somebody talking about the Edmonton Oilers. And from every shop, hotel, restaurant, bar, I was in any flight you take, it's covered with Connor McDavid jerseys. This town is rallying behind this team, and I tell you what, after Game 4, when they won, the streets were flooded with people and honking horns. I can't imagine what the city of downtown Edmonton's going to look like if they're able to win this one in Game 6.
He's Steve Peters. He is ESPN hockey analyst. He breaks the film down for PHNX_sports. Joining us here on the right to the guest line. All right, Steve, the news that broke at the top. Shu alerted us right at the beginning in reference to the land auction, which was supposed to, that's right, folks, supposed to take place Thursday, the 27th, has been canceled. Main Roost here, Craig Morgan broke the story that it looks like the Arizona State Land Trust would love to have a special use permit to make sure what the Coyotes want to do if they win the bid to be able to do that arena, because currently it's not zoned for that particular use. Now, she had a chance to break it down on the air. We read the State Land Trust release, what they're having to say. My commercial real estate hat that I had for many, many years, Steve, tells me that if they win the bid, they don't want any other hurdles as far as that deal getting closed and making sure the Yotes, if they decide, can build that arena. How'd you interpret that?
Yeah, well, the biggest problem we talked about, and this was a few weeks ago after the Morellos met with the mayor of Phoenix, and there was some issue over the zoning, and there was some interpretation open to what that actual meant on building a multi-use facility like a hockey arena there, and it was murky at best, but they said they would not clarify it until after the land was purchased. So if I'm Morello, I can't buy the land if I don't know if I'm going to be able to build a building on it. So I just think this is everybody stepping back. Morello's, why would you buy the land if you can't build an arena? So I think this is just trying to get clarification on the zoning for that land, and to make sure that if Morello does buy the land and purchase and win the auction, that he in fact has the correct zoning permits so that he can build an arena. It makes sense. The problem, as it always has been when it comes around the Arizona Coyotes, is it just pushes that timeline out again, because this isn't just postponed, this is canceled. And so what does that mean? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months? Things move very slowly in real estate and in government. So this is a huge concern in this timeline with Alex Morello and this land in North Phoenix.
Let me throw another angle at you guys as well, too, having dealt with this for 10 years in cities. City of Phoenix right now might be having a little heartburn of putting an arena there. It may not be the best use for that property, the most value they can get. The property is worth X. Now, what the city's looking for is something that works, that fits with tax dollars. Are they going to get the tax dollars back to the city with an arena and the functions versus more retail, more commercial, more apartments? You see what I'm saying, Steve? So that's why the city, that's why the State Land Trust said, wait a second, y'all need to get it figured out, or we're not going to have this. Otherwise, we'll sit on it. And if we do another bid and we got regular developers that don't want, then we'll open it back up. That's another angle I look at from this.
Yeah, and here's an interesting thing, too. Like Craig Morgan, you mentioned his reporting earlier. He reached out to the Coyotes and he just tweeted this to see if Morello is still going to move forward in this process. And they had no comment at this time. They're still absorbing the most recent news. I said this last week. I said, I'm not even convinced Morello is going to show up at this auction. That was more to do with the not guaranteeing of the zoning of that land. I don't know if this might give him the out he's been looking for. This might be his path to take his money and run. This might be, hey, you didn't lose the auction. There just wasn't an auction. And I thought that he's been looking for that back door out for a while now. This might be it. So I don't want to get Coyotes fans sitting there that their team is dead and they're never coming back. I just think that the Morello era may be coming to an end. This literally may be the last straw. And he's just going to take his money and ride off into the sunset.
All right, so as we let you go, how do you look? Game 6 tonight. I mean, that airplane's warming up there. One Steve Peters. How do you see this bad boy playing out there in Rogers Arena?
Okay, I'm going to change this because I've been on your show between game 4 and 5, and I said Florida's going to win for sure. Edmonton won, so I'm going all in on Edmonton tonight. Edmonton's going to win, and we're off to game 7. And let's see if that changes my karma. Actually, the truth is, I think that this is all going to come down to 2 things. This is going to come down to Connor McDavid versus Bobrovsky. And whoever gets the first goal in the series in each game, it's been a very pivotal goal, even more so tonight. I think if Florida can hold off and keep this 0-0 or have a lead after the first period, I think the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup here in Edmonton. But I don't know if that's going to happen. If Edmonton scores in the first 10 minutes, the roof is going to blow off this building, and I expect Edmonton Oilers to roll again.
Does your wife know who you are? Have you seen her like the last 2 weeks at all? I mean,
I haven't. By the way, you know how big of a doghouse I'm going to need? Because if it goes 7, I fly home the 25th, and I go to the draft on the 25th in Las Vegas. I won't even be home for 24 hours. Like, I don't know. My stuff might be out in the driveway when I get home. I'm not sure.
That's
Fingers
great.
crossed.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, hey, thanks so much. By the way, if they win tonight, is game 7 Sunday or Monday?
This is Monday night,
Okay.
live from Sunrise on Monday, and I hope I get to talk to you guys again on Monday.
All right, buddy. Hey, I appreciate your time. Good luck there. And we're hoping for a game 7. And just, 3 months from now, after you're out of the doghouse, your wife still might like you. We don't know yet.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
But that's Steve Peters, former Coyotes assistant coach, excuse me. That is what he does. He's like a telestrator for ESPN. So he's in the truck and he pulls out the plays that are important, some of the finer nuances. But that'll be game 6 tonight. I think the puck drops at
Real quick.
5 o'clock. Yes, you.
Did you see what he did there, though? He was smart. He finally figured it out. He's been on the show a bunch, and he's constantly got it wrong. So he purposely predicted the wrong thing. He purposely predicted the thing he doesn't believe because he knows the reverse is going to happen because he does not want to get on a plane to Sunrise, Florida. It took him until game 6, but he figured it out.
That game, they'll drop the puck at 5 o'clock. That'll be on ABC and ESPN Plus.
Yeah, it's real interesting to see what he said about this could be Murillo's last straw and him leaving like that. And we talked before the show, and we both said how we weren't big fans of Murillo just because of him not being there for that last Mullet Arena game and him kind of taking the easy way out. It seems like yet again he's taking the easy way out and making an excuse out of this.
And guys, and I'll say this: I'm surprised that he had to have known. He had to have known the city. They said you would have to get a special use permit to go ahead and do what you want to do because the zoning does not call for an arena. So he can't plead ignorant on this because if you're going to develop a property like they did with the city of Tempe, they had all their P's and Q's in line. They had all their T's crossed, their I's done. They were battened down when that went to a vote. So they were ready to go. The city was for it. Everything was in alignment. I don't understand why this wasn't in alignment, if you know what I'm talking. Why would you not have your special use permit? Why would you not have this? Why would you not have all the above? And this is like the state's going, wait a second. If y'all can't get it figured out, that means Murillo in the city, then at that point, then we're not going to go forward and sell it to you, not having, because we don't want this coming back to us.
Here's the other problem, guys. Alex Murillo's background is in real estate. So you can't claim that you don't know how zoning works.
Yes.
You can't claim to not know how you have to operate with state and local governments. You can't claim that you don't know how this stuff works. What's interesting to me, guys, and we've talked about this so many times when it comes with Alex Murillo and the Coyotes, the timeline just doesn't add up here. You go on local sports radio and you talk about how we're going to get the special zoning. We're going to meet with the local government. I'm bringing my checkbook. We're going to win the auction. We're going to keep the team here. And now all of a sudden, a week before, this thing pops up again and they cancel the state land auction because you don't have the special use permit. You've been talking about zoning and getting the special zoning for months now.
Yep.
We remember the conversation we had, what was it, 3 or 4 weeks ago, where the city of Phoenix came out with a statement that they had a meeting. So you've known this has been going on since you wanted this land. So to me, if he's looking for this as a reason for the back door to not have to continue this process, he's going about it in the worst PR way possible because he's talked about this publicly.
Amen. I hear you. I feel you. And I think you're exactly it. Coming up, it's our Football 50 in the Rock.